Hey there, fourth graders. I hope things are going fine and well and dandy for you. Thank you for watching this video on how to do some more math. Today we're going to be comparing fractions and decimals and saying, which one is bigger and which one is smaller. But before that, I have a joke for you. My joke today is, are monsters good at math? Not unless you count Dracula. Count Dracula. It's a good one. That's one of my better ones. Not as good as the parallel lines one, but it's pretty darn good. So yesterday we talked about how we can convert from a fraction to a decimal. Today we're going to say when we look at a fraction and we look at a decimal, how can we tell which one's bigger and which one is smaller? So let's start off with two values. Let's say I've got this fraction, for example, and this fraction is 4/10. And then let's say I've got another decimal over here, and this decimal is a 0.3. Now remember, you have to know how to say the decimals correctly. That's a huge part of fourth grade, because if you can say them correctly, your life gets a lot easier, I promise. So the way you do it is you cover up everything, you cover up from the decimal over, and then you say the number the way you normally would. So this is 3. And then you ask yourself which is the last place value that you see in there. So this is 3, it's in the tenths place. So this is 3/10. Now you've got two choices. This is what I like to do. I always want to compare apples to apples, meaning I want to have, if I've got a decimal on one side, I want to have a decimal on the other side, or a fraction on one side, a fraction on the other. Right now it's an apple and an orange. So I either want to turn this 3/10 into a fraction, or I want to turn this 4/10 into a decimal. Now, personally, when we're dealing with decimals, I don't know, I've always been a little bit stronger with fractions than I have with decimals, but you can do whichever way you want. So if it was me, what I would do, I'm going to take this 3/10 as the decimal, and I'm going to convert it into a fraction, because we know that 3/10 written as a decimal is the same thing as 3/10 written as a fraction. So here I have 3/10. Over here I have 4/10. So now it's a piece of cake. I just have to ask myself, which one's bigger, 4/10 or 3/10? And in that case, it's clearly that looks like a 7. Mr. Downs. 4/10 is clearly going to be bigger than 3/10. Okay. So the trick with this one is just to get the fraction and decimal into a same form. So either both of them fractions or both of them decimals. Let's try another one. Let's say I've got 66/100ths, and then let's say I've got 0.57. And once I just say 0.57 as I'm writing, because I want to teach how to say it first, but strive to always say the decimal the correct way. So here I have 0.57. For me to figure out how to say this decimal, I'm going to cover up the 0 in the decimal part. I'm just going to say that number the way I normally would. So this number is 57, right? So then I ask myself, it's 57, and then this last place value is in the hundreds. That's all you have to do. So it's 57, the last place value is in the hundreds, so it's 57 hundredths. So what I'm going to do for this one, I showed you on the last one, we could convert this 57 hundredths into 57 as a numerator, 100 as a denominator. But what I'm going to do on this one, I'm actually going to change the 66/100ths into a decimal. So I have 0 in my ones place because 66/100ths is a number less than 1. I'm going to do a decimal point. That decimal point is a signal to me that I'm switching from the ones place value into numbers that are less than 1. And then I have 6/10. That's this 6 in the tens place, the tens, 66/100ths. And then my next one is 6/100ths. So here I have 66/100ths, and I am comparing that to 57/100ths. So now it's a piece of cake. Which one's bigger? Which one's less than, greater than, equal to? And it's easy to see that 66/100ths is greater than 57/100ths. Let's try one more. I think that's really the bulk of it. Well, let's just do one more for kicks and giggles. Let's say that they throw a curveball at you. And instead of comparing, a fraction that's written in hundreds and a decimal that's written in hundreds, let's say they give you a decimal that's written in tenths, and then a fraction that is written in hundreds. So here I have 2/10 and I have 33/100. I'm going to show you both ways to solve this one before I solve it. So the 2/10 would be, I would write that as 2 as a numerator and 10 as a denominator. And then my 33/100 stays the same. But right now I have I have a numerator tenth, or denominator tenths, and a numerator tenths. Now some students will just go and mark greater than without really thinking through this, because are my pieces the same size between 2/10 and 33/100? Are my pieces the same size? They are not. Tenths, hundreds, pieces are different size. I need to make my pieces the same size so I can compare them. Now, if you remember, to convert from tenths to hundreds, all we do is multiply by 10 in the numerator and the denominator. So if you remember, 2/10, I'm going to multiply by 10/10, or 1 whole. 2/10 is the same thing as 20/100. Now it's very easy for me to compare and see that, oh yes, 20/100 is less than 33/100. Let me show you how I would do this as a decimal, with the converting it as a decimal. So then what I would do if I was converting as a decimal is I would say 33/100 is the same thing as 0.33 or 33/100. So then to compare it, some students will say, oh, this 2/10 is less, without really thinking it through, because they see 1 point here and 1 point there. But again, this one is hundredths and this one's in tenths. So what I always like to do is, if there's a tenth that's just left hanging and you're comparing it to hundredths, I just put that 0 there in the hundredths place to remind me. So now I can compare which one's bigger, 20/100 or 33/100. And it is 33/100. So that should do you for today. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have a great day and keep up the hard work. Bye-bye.